tonight we're going to have, I believe, a good show. Get a chance to call some neighbors. Tonight's show is going to be medical marijuana use and the pros and cons to medical marijuana use. And we have some, I think, some outstanding guests to explain the use of medical marijuana. But before we go there to introduce the guests, I would like to dedicate the show to a few people. One of them is Miss Betty Lewis. She works at Harley He at High Rise. Also, Miss Betty Robinson. Also, Miss Mabel, Emmett Foster, Miss Mabel Foster, and my mother. That was a beautiful lady y'all seen in the video, Mabel Cephas. The show is dedicated to these beautiful women. Also tonight, I want, again, to just call a bunch of people, and again, this is going to be very different and interesting show. Again, every week we've been trying to have a couple shows about, we've been bringing you the problem, but then we try to bring you the solution to the problem and bring some legislators. Helene Keeley, State Representative Helene Keeley, was supposed to be here tonight, but she's not feeling good, so we hope that she will call in. And also, the legislators in Dover has been doing excellent work, and I think the community needs to get more involved. And again, I can't say enough for the Sunset Committee with Brady, Nicole, also JJ Johnson, State Rep. So many. I would urge the community to get involved because they're doing good things. And even if you don't agree with them all the time, if you take your problems and your concerns to them, I believe they will address them. Again, this legislation, these men and women have been doing an awesome job. And again, my name is Julius Cephas. I'm president of Local 1694-1 at the Port of Wilmington. And I think the Port of Wilmington is moving in the right direction because of great legislation laws and because of the leadership down in Dover has been holding people at the Port of Wilmington accountable. Because before the legislators got involved, they was running rampant, but the legislators have been holding people accountable, and I'm just so proud to see our legislators doing an excellent job. And later on I'll name some names, but I don't like really doing that because you forget a name, you in trouble. But again, tonight, I wanted these two young ladies to come on about medical marijuana. I want them to introduce themselves and who they are and what they do, and then we'll start with the questions. How you doing?
Hi Julius, how are you? I'm Cynthia Ferguson. I am the Executive Director of Delaware Normal. Delaware Normal was founded in March of last year, 2013. We are a state chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, which has been around since 1970.
Hi, thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Zoe Patchell, and I'm the legislative correspondent to Delaware Normal and the co-chair to the Cannabis Bureau of Delaware.
Okay, the first question, why do you think, again, medical marijuana should be legalized?
Well, Delaware has a Medical Marijuana Act, and we have since 2011. So it's not whether it should or shouldn't, it is.
Okay.
Unfortunately, people aren't as familiar with it as they should be because unfortunately we do not have a dispensary yet. Even though this was enacted in 2011 and it's now 2014, there's yet to be a dispensary.
Okay. And why do you think that there's not?
Well, the reason that we were given that there wasn't is Governor Markell, once this legislation was enacted, was worried because the medical dispensary is going to be a state-run facility. That means the employees of the dispensary are going to be state employees. And he was concerned that the federal government, because marijuana is illegal, and he was concerned that the federal government would come in and arrest state employees for doing their job.
That actually, there was an amendment into the medical cannabis bill that allowed a bid for proposal. So the people that are winning the bid are no longer state employees. So that fear is no longer valid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, do you think, again, so basically what you're saying, the governor doesn't want this because it will be state employees, but it's like to me they want to privatize it. Am I wrong or right?
No, a request for proposal went out for the provider, and it's going to be a nonprofit company. So they're privatizing it, but it's a nonprofit company. And we met with the governor at the beginning of June. He's behind this.
Okay.
What he said to us is, of course he's behind it. He signed it.
Okay. Now, again, State Representative Helene Keeley was supposed to be here, but again, they've been so busy in Dover. They've been so busy in Dover that she's under the weather and she's got to go back tomorrow and they got to try to close out. I also want to thank Helene Keeley because, again, the Port of Wilmington, her and her colleagues did an awesome job to make sure that the port is going where it's going. And again, she recognized, we had a couple shows talking about incarceration, trying not to incarcerate everybody for small amounts. And you could talk about Helene's bill. I think her bill was trying to, anybody who's selling marijuana for profit, she was going to let the law handle that. But if it's a small amount, instead of putting people in the court system, putting them in jail, spending $36,000 per year, that she's trying to do something different. Can you talk about that, or the bill? Any of y'all talk about Helene's bill?
Yeah. First, I'd like to commend Representative Keeley and Senator Henry for taking these brave first steps in ending cannabis prohibition. I think it's a great step in the right direction. And with cannabis being so taboo, I'd really like to commend them for taking these brave steps. House Bill 371 would allow for personal use. Well, it would decriminalize for personal use, rather. It would make it a $250 fine. The original bill had some different language. There was a substitute bill introduced last week, and it took out up to an ounce as the language and just replaced it with personal use. We are a little concerned with that because it leaves it up to the police and the courts to interpret. And the reason we worry about that is because right now there's disproportionate arrests. African Americans are disproportionately feel these harsh penalties for cannabis here in Delaware, and here in Delaware, African Americans are 3 times more likely to be arrested for the same offense, despite similar usage rate. So that kind of having it be interpretive is, kind of worries us a little bit, as well as the $250 fine, because that fine doubles in 90 days. So someone who doesn't have that kind of money would essentially, be subjected to a $500 fine instead of a $250 fine. But other than that, we definitely are very happy with this bill, and we're glad that they're so confident in putting out this bill and moving Delaware in the right direction to ending cannabis prohibition completely.
Now, what about, again, people who you get caught up, you're young, you make mistakes, okay? So if a person gets caught up, they get in the data system. So now, if I'm going to college, I can't get in I can't get financial aid. Now, my employment. So a lot of times when we turn our life around in our late 20s or 30s, something I did when I was 18, that possession or whatever. So that's what you're trying to get the clarification on, so they won't have to have these problems?
Yes, I think that's a great point that you just brought up, how a student can, be caught up for a non-toxic plant and then lose their, financial aid, while you can be arrested for violent crimes or even victim crimes like rape or robbery and still keep your financial aid. So it's a very confusing message, as well as the fact that people that are arrested for cannabis, like you just said, that's going to be on their record, and that's going to impede future employment. So by eliminating these arrests and eliminating putting, this into the database, which this bill does, these arrests will no longer go in the database. It'll be a civil fine, just like it's a parking ticket. It's a steep parking ticket, but it's a parking ticket nonetheless. So they won't be submitted into, these databases, and it won't come up in future, job searches.
So basically, it's kind of like the seatbelt ticket, or if I go through the make a turn and the light gets me, I got to pay the $100 fine, but it doesn't go on my insurance, it doesn't go on my record, something like similar to that.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Now, like I said again, we're going to be all over the place because there's so much. Now, me as a president of the union, and I used to be president of the union for the city, mostly people get terminated, get fired because of because of marijuana, because it stays in your system for 30 days. And I think, again, my concern is how would it affect the African American community? Because again, I see a lot of times guys may have a party the end of the month, they might haven't had nothing in 28 days, but it's still in their system, and they might end up losing their jobs. What do you have to say about that? What's your opinion on that, either one of y'all?
First, I'd like to say I think that we need to look at the negative repercussions on the African American community with cannabis prohibition. Just like alcohol prohibition, cannabis prohibition is very problematic and it's ineffective. And like I just stated, African Americans are 3 times more likely to be arrested for nonviolent cannabis possession despite the same usage. So you have to look at the negative repercussions that are already in those communities, first of all, and second of all, someone who would lose their job because they had cannabis in their system and they weren't arrested, or this was a civil fine, that person can look for a job in the future without having to worry about their record. So I think eliminating the arrest is so important, because somebody can recover, if they're addicted to cannabis, because let's be honest, there's a lot of people that use cannabis that are not addicted to cannabis. In fact, it has a very low addiction rate, in fact lower than alcohol itself. Alcohol is at 15% and cannabis is at 9% according to the Institute of Medicine, and so it's almost half as addicting as alcohol. But like I was saying, so if someone was trying to recover from cannabis addiction, it would be a lot easier than recovering from a cannabis arrest that will follow them through their entire life.
Okay. Now, what does medical marijuana, what are some of the illnesses that medical marijuana covers? Diabetes, got certain diseases. Can you name a few that?
Sure. It covers ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. It covers AIDS or HIV, cancer. It covers symptoms of multiple sclerosis. It covers hepatitis C. It also covers anything that a doctor would feel the person would benefit from after they've tried 3 other treatments, be it surgery or other medicines.
One of the things that's not on there, and I know sickle cell is dealing with the blood and all that, and sickle cell, people are in pain the rest of their life, and I'm hoping whenever that's will be a part, look into considering sickle cell as something that should be on this list. You know what I mean?
It's not on the list, but once again, they left a little opening there. So if you were to have something that's not on the list, but you did benefit and your doctor felt that you benefited from cannabis, he could recommend it for you.
Now, how do you stop, and this is going to be a hard one, this is for both of you, how do you stop the abuse? I remember I was watching 60 Minutes, and anybody with a chronic illness, that's what they said. So one guy came up there, and the line was all the way around the corner, like they was giving food stamps away. That the guy had a chronic cold. He took a couple coughs. You know how you do it. The guys, know what I'm saying, to get a physical, you cough, boom, prescription. One guy, he had a chronic pain in his toe. I mean, anything that you put chronic on there, they was giving prescriptions. How
well,
do
that
you
was
stop
in a
them?
different state too.
Okay, but how do y'all? Again, I'm just trying to be both sides, the whole. So how do y'all handle or prevent the abuse, weed out the abuse that might come with that?
Yes, I think that's a very important question. As leaders of these organizations, we definitely push responsible use, which would be avoiding abuse, and as well as some other things. However, cannabis is a completely non-toxic substance, and it's more versatile than Tylenol. So when you're saying about people trying to get prescribed cannabis for their toe hurting, pain is very valid to use cannabis, as well as cannabis has anti-inflammatory properties, which most diseases these days are caused from inflammatory in your body. So I think that cannabis is way safer than Tylenol and many other pharmaceuticals. Tylenol contributes to over 400 deaths a year. Cannabis has never been associated with any deaths. In fact, I have a Department of Justice DEA quote. It's from a report called Drugs of Abuse, and it states that no deaths from overdose of marijuana have ever been reported. And then when you compare the pain medication that's out today, the CDC says that pain meds contribute to 22,000 overdose deaths a year, which is 60% of all pharmaceutical deaths. So when these pharmaceuticals and these pain medications are so readily available, and they're killing all these people, and you want to talk about the real gateway drug, we have a heroin epidemic here in Delaware. Well, prescription pain medicine is the gateway to heroin, and you can talk to a lot of different people that have been on prescription pain medication that have found themselves with heroin addictions because it ends up being cheaper. So when you're looking at something that has such a little addiction rate and is completely safe and has never seen any deaths, I think it's comparable to.
And if I may,
sure.
If I may answer your question, your concern seemed to be that everybody would be able to get cards and be able to abuse the system, get a medical marijuana card, and use it. Unfortunately, Delaware Normal has found that doctors throughout the state are not signing these applications. So legitimate patients, folks that are sick, we get 5 calls a week. Most of these people are over 60 years old, and a majority of them have not even tried marijuana, but they're at the end of the ropes, depending on what their condition is. And we're finding that the doctors aren't signing. So in one state, you've got people around the block coughing and getting a signature, and in another state that also has medical marijuana, there are people with hepatitis C who are not getting medical marijuana cards because their doctor will not sign.
Or cancer or HIV.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time when I was younger, I heard about medical marijuana. I was probably about 15 or 16, and a lady, it was a senior lady, lived across the street from us, and the doctor told her to go, and she had glaucoma, and the doctor had told her to get some marijuana and to help her out. And some of the older kids used to do that to help her out. So that's the first time I heard of it, and I was about 16 at the time. I know I just watched the program on CNN. This little girl was 3 years old. She was having almost 100 and something seizures a day. And this one guy made some marijuana where she could put it in her food. Her seizures went from 100 a day to 3, but they had to go out of state to another state. It was only one state, So I'm hearing a lot of success stories, but I know this is something that I want to ask both of y'all. What do you say when people say that marijuana leads to harsher drugs, to coke, to heroin, to other things? What is your answer? Because again, kids see this, and what's y'all's answer to do marijuana, again, I'm just throwing it out there, do marijuana lead to harsher drugs?
You're asking if it's a gateway drug.
I'd like to refer to the 1999 Institute of Medicine at the National Academy of Science study that was commissioned by Congress that completely debunked the gateway theory. And it states that most drug users begin with alcohol and nicotine before marijuana. There's also a PubMed.gov excerpt that states, these findings suggest that for a large number of serious drug users, marijuana does not play the role of a gateway drug. We conclude that prevention efforts which focus on alcohol and marijuana may be of limited effectiveness for youth who are at risk for serious drugs. Plus, we see that regulation and education has been scientifically proven to reduce use. We look at, there's actually a 2008 World Health Organization study that compares cannabis use all over the world, and it compared teen cannabis use in the Netherlands to here in the United States, and teen use here in the United States is at 20%, where in the Netherlands, where they've had over 4 decades of regulation and open consumption in coffee houses, they're only at 7% for their teen use. And our adult use is almost double theirs. We're at 42%, and their use is at 20% across the board. So I mean, it's been proven that education and regulation reduce use across the board. Prohibition has never worked. We've seen that with alcohol prohibition, and cannabis prohibition is just as problematic as alcohol prohibition was.
Now, let me, like I said again, I'm just asking the question. So, what when people say that marijuana can create increase in cancer? People say that marijuana lowers your sperm count, which probably is not a bad thing for a lot of people. I mean, it slows down your mental capacity. Then I know, again, not from my own personal experience. I want y'all to hear me. Not from my own personal experience. When I was growing up, people who smoked marijuana, the only thing got raided was your mom's refrigerator. But that's not coming from me. But what about with people who, does it lower your sperm count? Does it cause some parts of cancer?
I have a study right here actually that was published in the Washington Post, and it states, while no association between marijuana smoking and cancer was found, the study findings presented to the American Thoracic Society International Conference this week did find a 20-fold increase in lung cancer among people who smoke 2 or more packs of cigarettes a day. So to reiterate, it says no association between marijuana smoking and cancer was found. And there's been other studies that it cures lung cancer and all kinds of stuff. If you go to the National Cancer Institute, there's actually a study called Cannabis and Cannabinoids, and on that list they have things that cannabis can do: anti-inflammatory, like I already spoke about, antiviral properties, preventing the growth of blood vessels that supply tumors, which is completely different than what we see with chemo, because when that's the number one treatment for cancer is chemo, and it destroys the healthy cells around the cancer cells that they're trying to eradicate. And the National Cancer Institute, like I said, Cannabis and Cannabinoids, states that it prevents the growth of blood vessels to supply the tumors. And then they just added on March 25th of this year, relieving muscle spasms caused by multiple sclerosis. So the National Cancer Institute has some great studies out there about cannabis.
Now, could you, if it's not too personal, could you tell us about your mother's, about
Yeah.
Because I just want you to tell our viewing audience your story.
My mother died of cancer when I was 13 years old. When I was 8 years old, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she was given 6 months to a year to live. She received radiation, and then her cancer came back, and then she was receiving chemo. She was put on all kinds of pain medications and such, and she was wasting away to nothing. I would hear her in the middle of the night being sick off the chemo, and I would go in there to try to help her, and it was just getting bad for a while. And then they had her on antidepressants that actually made her want to kill herself at one point. So I don't. It's an extremely painful subject for me, but to see, I believe that what I went through with that is definitely has to do with what I'm doing here today, because it's so important that, when you look at the National Cancer Institute Cannabis and Cannabinoids study, and it says that it blocks the blood cell to tumors, and like, this information needs to get out there. People are dying from cancer, and people are dying from the so-called cures of cancer, the radiation and the chemo itself. So if there's something healthier out there and safer, we need to be exploring this. And the National Cancer Institute already has and says that, yes, there are these properties, and as well as the fact that even if you don't believe that it cures cancer, it helps people with their appetite stimulation. And when you're going through these diseases, you need your strength, and your strength comes from your nutrition. And if you're not being able to keep your nutrition down, your entire body, already going through the disease, it's going to be compromised even more. Your immune system's going to be compromised even more. So I think this is extremely, important that people understand.
I gotta say again, what you just said. If you listen to commercials, after every commercial, I've seen pills where it's for a cold, but if you listen to the effects, if you have seizures, if you think about killing yourself, stop taking it. Some of the side effects are twice as worse than the disease itself.
Exactly.
I mean, one commercial where it was this drug, and it was just a simple. But if you took the medication, if you thought about killing yourself, killing somebody, or if it could stop your heart from beating, the side effects are terrible. And it's behind every commercial, so we need to really, really pay attention. What do you ladies think about Colorado right now? Where do y'all think that the finances? Because I think they think $600 million, $30 million. I think the first year. What do you ladies, and both of y'all could answer, whoever, about, I think they legalized recreational marijuana and the tax base and all that. What do y'all think about that?
Yes, their tax revenue is significantly up. In the first few months, they in fact actually made so much tax money they actually had to refund some of the tax money because they were just taking in too much. Meanwhile, their violent crime is down over 11%. Their property crime is down over 5%,
Okay,
and their
let me-
homicide is down 52%.
Hold up. And you raise a good point. Is it because everybody, man, I'm too high to go do something. Shoot, I'm going to go rob him tomorrow, not today, I can't move. No, I'm just messing with you.
Cannabis isn't associated with aggression like alcohol is.
Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back to finish this great dialogue with these two lovely young ladies. All right, we're back. Also, I wanted the number, even though right now they don't have the number. Number is 661-4468. 661-4468. And before we go, also, I want everybody, it's a lady named Ruth Baker. She has a show called Mind Matter. And for everybody, it's an awesome show. It gives you a different perspective. Her show, I think, is on every other Sunday at 12 o'clock, and especially if your kids are into science. Check out Ruth Baker's show. I think it's awesome, and I think she gives people a different perspective, and that's what we need. We just don't need to be, everybody don't need to be throwing about. You're doing an excellent job, Ruth, and just keep doing what you're doing. The number again is 661-4468. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. Hello, you're on the air.
Hey, Julius, fantastic show as all of them.
Okay, thank you.
I want to commend you for your dedication in trying to help keep this old wheel turning in memory of Representative Howell, Plant, and Hazel. Look, man, ironic that I come in the house and clicked on to see what you were talking about and to hear these fantastic young women sharing this valuable information. Julius, I just left a very, very close friend of both yours and mine, I'm not going to call names, who is going through a bout with cancer this very moment. And I sat with him for about 45 minutes at his home just a few minutes ago. And he was telling me as he was talking about his situation, how he wasn't able to be able to eat, Julius, and keep anything down until it was recommended to him to get some weed and take a puff and a couple and do that. And he said he was having a problem being able to go to the bathroom and eat and hold down. And he said both of those things, each time now he's starting to pick up a little weight. His doctor said it's a strong recommendation he continue to do it. And it's fantastic that you're talking about this. But he says, a living witness, that one who is going through, it works. He could not keep anything down or use the restroom until he started smoking a little weed, just a little off of a joint or whatever, and let it work in his system. Fantastic.
Right. Thank you so much,
Keep up
Herman.
the good work, and tell the ladies I said fantastic job.
Okay.
Keep up the fight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. There you go. Hello, you on the air.
Good evening, Julius, and good evening to both your guests. Very informative.
Thank you, Liz.
Listen, a few things. First of all, I want to commend Helene Keeley one of the most progressive Democrats that we have in Dover. She's always been on the right side of the people, and I want to commend her for getting this bill to the point that it is. It's a first step, but we'll get there. The second thing I want to talk about is all of the other diseases and handicapping conditions which are fixed or helped by cannabis. Cannabis is a 6,000-year-old God-given natural plant that is in the book of Genesis as a miracle plant. And yesterday, Pat Robertson, of all people, came out and stated that he is for the complete legalization of it. So what is going on here? We need to legalize this medicine. What we are dealing with are lobbyists from the medical industrial complex. They are making sure that they can pump these poisons into us when we have a God-given plant here that can cure a lot of these things. It lifts your spirit. There are people who have terrible pain, and if they just smoked a little, they feel better. They eat well. It's a good thing all around. So let's stop playing games with this and get these legislators to sign on. I don't agree with the fines because we don't fine people who drink alcohol, which is even worse than cannabis. So, but you know, we'll get there eventually. I hope and pray. But I do want to thank Helene for all the good hard work she's done.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Thank you.
Well, take care.
All right. Okay. Go ahead. Hello, you on the air?
Yes, good evening, Julius. This is Francis, and good evening to your guest. Hello?
How you doing? We can hear you. Go ahead.
I said good evening, Julius, and good evening to your guest.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Everybody can hear you. Go ahead. What's the question?
Well, I just wanted to say that I don't understand why the doctors won't sign for people to get medical marijuana, but yet and still they can fill out the prescription for you to get Percocets, and that leads to people to get other hard drugs if they can't get those Percocets.
That's true. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead. You on the air?
Hi, Julius. Thank you for taking my call. This is Pastor D.
How you doing, Pastor? I hope you're feeling better too.
Well, thank you. Thank you. A bunch of weeks in the hospital, listen, I'd like to ask your guest, the hepatitis C population in Delaware has exploded, particularly among African American people, and specifically within the prison system. And there are many geriatric cancer-ridden persons within the prison system. I'd be interested in knowing, is there any component of the legislation, any component of the law, and how would it serve people in jail for drugs who need drugs to get well in the hospitals and prison? Has any thought been given to that? How, if it succeeds, then what do you do about the sick people in jail?
Okay. Thank you, Pastor. We'll let the ladies answer the question. Thank you so much.
That's a good question.
Go ahead.
I think his question was, does it cover hepatitis C?
No, his question is, how does it help the people who are incarcerated with hepatitis C? And at this point, how do we know? We don't even have a dispensary yet. You know, the gentleman who talked about his friend who had cancer and took a couple puffs so he could eat and go along with his life. That poor gentleman had to go somewhere and buy that marijuana on the black market.
Right.
At this point, people should be able to go to a dispensary, go to a clean, well-lit place, get something of quality, know what they're getting, pay for what they're getting, and be able to go home and use it in their own homes. At this point, they can't do that.
Laboratory tested.
Yes, laboratory
Right.
tested.
Good. Hello, you on the air?
Yeah, how's it going, Julius?
How you doing?
Just had a quick question. The ladies are doing a fantastic job educating us, but that has to be some kind of negative effect to smoking weed and marijuana. It has to be something that's bad about it, right?
Okay, we're going to let the ladies answer it. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just go over, we actually have a Department of Justice DEA report right here, and it goes over the possible effects. And the possible effects of cannabis are euphoria, relaxed inhibitions.
What's the four-year to the?
Euphoria, kind of, I guess that would be the high feeling that people describe.
Okay.
So feeling really good, relaxed, happy, and enjoying the mood. So euphoria, relaxed inhibitions, increased appetite, and disorientation. And like I already stated, that same report says that there's no deaths from marijuana have ever been recorded. I think with smoking anything, you might have some like bronchitis and something like that, but there are plenty of other ways to ingest cannabis. There's the, vaporization as well as the extracted oils, which is best for the medical anyway.
Okay. And one of the things that the cannabis community says is the worst thing about cannabis is getting caught with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead, you on the air.
James Pastor D again, and I just want to share with you guys, we in the African American community are very appreciative of help from folks like yourself when laws will impact us, and we have large numbers of our people. But we also have a flip side of this type of help. The face of the help becomes white and young, and it serves their interest because they agree and want this thing to happen for a small number of their people. We jump on board because we need it to happen for a large number of our people. But now, because of Jim Crow, unfairness, and all the things we suffered in America, the largest number of our sick people, HIV and AIDS, hepatitis C, and other conditions, are coming to us from prison. And if they are restricted from being able to access something that you are fighting for now, it makes more sense to us to fight the boll weevil and save the cotton, rather than have to deal with one thing now and then the other thing later. And that is not their fault. I'm just suggesting that including people like the great Miss Ruth Baker that you spoke of earlier, and other people. We have black doctors from Africa, Mr. Senyoki and others. We have black people who have very deep, long, and ranging knowledge, and we have Sam Guy and others who have legal knowledge. I'll conclude. We have the legal knowledge to help them craft a part of this legislation.
Okay, we're gonna. Okay, thank you again.
Thank you, Pastor.
And let me say this. And if you look at any fight, period. I watched my mother. My mother worked for Catholic Social Service. My mother and the ladies organized welfare rights and everything. A lot of times, it's the groups who organize get things done. A lot of times it's not based on race, it's organization. When you organize, I watched my mother, we lived in Riverside, they had one of the highest voting blocks. Again, I watched these ladies organize, and we must start organizing. We used to do it, but now it's, well, he's not with me, she's not with me. Let's organize, because we got more in common than we don't. Okay. Hello, you on the air?
Yes, hello. My name is Ruth Fennell.
How you doing, Ruth?
Yes, listen, there's a problem with your show tonight, and I'll tell you what the reason is. Since these ladies said that marijuana is legalized, you should have had doctors on your show with the pro and cons of legal marijuana.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and maybe the next time some doctors can come on, but again, we're trying to do the best we can. The next show, we can have doctors. Thank you. Okay. You on the air?
Hi, I had a question for the ladies.
Go ahead, they can hear you.
I was wondering what the effects would be on somebody behind the wheel if there would be some laws about, having smoked or been on the drug and driving. And I'll hang up and listen.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's interesting you say that. Zoe spoke of responsible marijuana use. Well, one part of it is no drugs driving. Just like alcohol, we believe that if you are going to use cannabis, you should stay away from your car.
Okay.
You must use it responsibly.
Okay. Yeah. The number again is, because the machine's broke, is 661-4468. 661-4468. All right, hello, you on the air?
Hey, Julius.
Hey.
Man, how you been?
Okay. How you doing, Church? I know who it is. Go ahead. What's your question?
Hey, look, all I can say is this, is that you're doing an outstanding job, man. And like I said before when we chatted a bit, look, the best thing that you can do is stay there and let them know who you are, be yourself, make it happen. And the way you're making it happen right now is having that young lady on her. We've had her on the show, myself and Linwood Jackson. When we were talking to her, she has some good points, the young lady. And look,
Hey, wait a minute, hold up.
Hey, I heard that.
They both, wait a minute, Church. They both young, but
What's
keep
up,
going.
Church?
well, that's all right. You know,
Go ahead.
I'm not biased about anybody's age or anything. One may be a seasoned citizen. How's that? But other than that, then look, just let them know that organization, like you said before, Ruth Baker, Josie Roy, the Congos, and all of us for LAPA, we worked hard to get things done. We didn't ask for any money. We did this all on our own. And organization is the only way you're going to get things accomplished. Anything you do, you have to be organized and committed to getting it accomplished.
Okay.
We'll talk to you, all
All right,
right?
thank you, Church. Okay. Hello, you on the air?
Yes, I was just calling in reference to the young lady that had some of the research that supports the use of medical marijuana. I am a nurse practitioner, and I have talked to a lot of my physicians about using or prescribing marijuana. And the consensus was that it causes more cancer. There's a high risk of cancer in people who smoke marijuana than tobacco smoke. And it also, as Mr. Julius says, decreases sperm cell count. It can cause premature births in women. And it also slows mental functioning and what's the effect on driving and work and employment. So I think that's something that needs to be discussed. It does have cancer-causing substances in marijuana. I'd like to know what your thought is.
All right, thank you.
First, I'd like to point to the National Cancer Institute study, Cannabis and Cannabinoids. You can Google it right now, and there you will find that it states that it cuts off the blood cell supply to the tumor. Plus, like I think I was speaking about earlier, there's this Washington Post study. In fact, it was the largest case-controlled study ever done, and it concludes that while no association between marijuana smoking and cancer was found, the study's finding said that there's a 20-fold increase with people that smoke cigarettes. And that's very much legal, and it kills over 440,000 people a day. Right now in the United States, tobacco use is actually on a decline, and nobody had to go to jail for that to happen. Prohibition never works, and it's always education and regulation that'll prevent use.
Okay, go ahead, you on the air.
Yes, I'm just wondering what's going on with the money aspect. Jersey already legalized their plant and marijuana stores in New Jersey. If they do it here in Delaware, won't they raise a lot of money for the school?
Okay, good question, and let the ladies answer. Thank you so much.
Now, the medical program here in Delaware will not be funded with state money whatsoever. And if you look to states like Colorado and Washington that have completely taxed and regulated cannabis, they're seeing a significant increase in tax revenue that's going to fund schools, roads, infrastructure, and other state needs. So I think that this...
Right, the program we have right now is not going to benefit the state coffers. Were marijuana to be taxed and regulated, were it to be legal, that's where we would get the benefit.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. You on the air.
Yeah, just a quick question on driving. If you're doing marijuana, I know you said you can't drive initially after doing marijuana while you're high, but if it stays in your system for 30 days and I get pulled over a week later and they take my blood, they're going to see it's marijuana in it. So how does states like Colorado get around this?
All right, thank you. Good question. Now, I'm not an expert, so I do know that me being the president, they have levels. They can tell. Mm-hmm. They got the scientific. They can tell how long ago, they can tell by the levels. Mm-hmm. Now, I think for it to go further, there needs to be some type of where they can take your blood or whatever test to say, okay, you didn't smoke. You smoked it a month ago. But I definitely know they got levels. They can tell how long it's been. That's on the books.
Right.
Okay.
There's new technology, in fact, that they're using, that they're coming up with a cannabis breathalyzer that can tell if you've been smoking within the last few hours, as well as some mouth swabs. Though, you know, there's some legal groups that say there might be some constitutional concerns with that.
Okay.
But there's definitely ways to tell. And I think it's a good point that, you know, he brought up that cannabis stays in your system for 30 days because we have an endocannabinoid system in our bodies that regulates cannabis, and that's why you can't die from it. These cannabinoids aren't, the receptors aren't located in the brainstem area that controls respiratory, so your breathing will never be cut off. So the reason that it stays in your system so long is because your body is using those valuable cannabinoids for multiple purposes.
Are you on the air?
Yes, I just wanted to say that she's 100% correct. I know in Colorado, if you have more than 0.25 of the marijuana in your system, then they can actually tell. So they do have those devices out there that if you're driving, it's just like alcohol, you cannot be over a certain percentage.
Thank you.
And, you know, you just have to make sure that everything that you do correctly.
Thank you so much.
Currently in Colorado, it's actually 5 nanograms that they're using, and the nanograms are to indicate active cannabinoids, meaning that it was used within the last few hours.
Okay. Also, me and Trippy, we play ping pong. Trippy Congo, we play ping pong. What we've been trying to do, if anybody can help, Helene, any state rep or legislators, we've been trying to play the governor. We'd rather see the city play the state in a ping pong tournament. The money goes to charity. Governor Merkel, I hear you're supposed to be pretty good. Me and Trippy Congo, we think we're pretty good. We can get a team together and play the state and donate this money to charity. So if anybody can help me with this process, go ahead. Also, I want to thank the city of Wilmington, Mayor Williams' administration for a great jazz festival. I think 5,000 people a day was there attended. I heard they had a great jazz festival. And Pastor Beeman has a sign up for, I think, anti-violence with fathers. I don't have it right in front of me. I think it's for next Saturday. I think it's at 1 o'clock. But our contact Bethel's Church for Pastor Beeman and get more information on, because I don't have it right in front of me. And I think we got a few more minutes left. We have 2 minutes left. I'm gonna let these ladies say what they gotta say. Let them close out, and I'll close it up. I'll start with you first.
Okay. I want to thank you for bringing us here and getting this out in the forefront. The medical marijuana program has a long way to go, and we're very hopeful. We're extremely hopeful about House Bill 371, which is decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana. We're urging you to contact your representatives and tell them you want that heard and that you want them voting on that.
Thank you so much for having us on to talk about this very important issue. I really appreciate it. Just to reiterate what she was saying, we have House Bill 371. Please call your legislators and please be active and speak out about these truths about cannabis in the community. So these laws we can get these antiquated laws off the books. And I just wanted to share the U.S. patent for cannabis on its neuroprotectant and antioxidant abilities, and this is a U.S. government-held patent for cannabis. So
wait a minute, say that again. The U.S. government got a patent on cannabis weed.
On its neuroprotectant and antioxidant abilities. It actually says the cannabinoids are found to have particular application as neuroprotectants, for example, in limiting neurological damage following ischemic insults such as stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and HIV dementia.
Yeah. If you didn't know, since the 70s, the federal government has been supplying cannabis to medical patients. At one point, there were 15 of them. They're down to 4.
Okay. Also, so we got to wrap it up, but I want to thank Senator Marshall for helping the Port of Wilmington, to helping the state economy with the Port of Wilmington. Again, I'm glad to get in Miss, I call her Dr. Baker. Ruth Baker, watch her show, because again, she brings a different point of view, and especially if your kids are into science. I want to say good night. It's been an excellent show, and maybe they can have doctors at another time. Again, thank you, and thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
For opening
so
our eyes.
much.
Thank you. Y'all was excellent guests. Thank you again. Good night.